There are currently 64 known cases of the coronavirus in the United States after 2 new cases were identified just tonight, California and Oregon. And still, the president is talking about 15 cases. And just tonight at a rally, he went a step further and called the coronavirus a hoax.
This is their new hoax. But, you know, we did something that's been pretty amazing. We're 15 people in this massive country. And because of the fact that we went early, we could have had a lot more than that.
A few more numbers. There are now more than 85,000 cases worldwide. The World Health Organization, in fact, today raised their own assessment of the global coronavirus risk from high to very high, and that's their highest category. As their deputy director of health emergencies put it, quote, this is really a reality. This is a reality check for every government on the planet. Wake up, get ready. This virus may be on its way. And again today, indeed, the market suffered losses for the 7th day in a row now. The Dow has lost 12% of its total value in 1 week, making it the worst loss since 2008. Tonight, NBC News has confirmed, Washington Post reporting, that the White House is looking at a tax cut and possibly interest rate cuts to help the economy. Meanwhile, the White House has also decided to put off a major summit with Asian leaders scheduled for next month in Vegas amid concerns about coronavirus. Whole lot of travel plans have changed. A lot of airline stocks are way down. Amazon has stopped non-essential employee travel. United Airlines reducing its service throughout Asia. While the AP is reporting school districts across this country are starting to prepare online classes and canceling trips abroad. Despite evidence pointing to the spread of coronavirus, the president is still using his own false set of numbers.
We're at the same number. A lot of people are getting better, very much better. The 15 number, the 15 people, likewise, we have them down to a much lower number. They're in good shape. Most of them are in really good shape. One of the people is, I wouldn't say not doing well, but she's very sick, but she's hopefully getting better. But we're at the same number. Essentially we've only had 15.
This is the worst week for the stocks since the financial crisis. Is it more of an economic or public health crisis?
Well, I think it's just people don't know. It's the unknown. You know, they look at it and they say, how long will this last? I think they're not very happy with the Democrat candidates when they see them. I think that has an impact. And we think we're going to win. We think we're going to win easily, but you never know. It's an election. I don't think that's helping. I made one decision that was a very important decision, and that was to close our country to a certain area of the world that was relatively heavily infected. And because of that, we're talking about 15 who seem to be all getting better. One is questionable.
Again, 64 confirmed cases in this country. Then here's more of what he said about the virus at his rally just tonight in North Charleston, South Carolina.
One of my people came up to me and said, Mr. President, they tried to beat you on Russia. That didn't work out too well. They couldn't do it. They tried the impeachment hoax. That was on a perfect conversation. They tried anything. They tried it over and over. They've been doing it since you got in. It's all turning. They lost.
Earlier today, his chief of staff spoke at the Conservative Political Action Committee and gave a similar perspective.
We took extraordinary steps 4 or 5 weeks ago. Why didn't you hear about it? What was still going on 4 or 5 weeks ago? Impeachment. And that's all the press wanted to talk about. The reason you're saying so much attention to it today is that they think this is going to be what brings down the president. That's what this is all about. This is not Ebola, okay? And I'll tell you what that means in a sense. It's not SARS. It's not MERS. It's not a death sentence. It's not the same as the Ebola crisis. Are you going to see some schools shut down? Probably. May you see impacts on public transportation? Sure. But we do this. We know how to handle this.
More on all of that in a bit. The president's eldest son also weighed in today on the criticisms of the administration's response.
Are you surprised the way they've been handling the coronavirus situation, meaning Democrats?
Not at all. I mean, we've seen, like you said, we've seen this play out for 4 years. Anything that they can use to try to hurt Trump, they will. The playbook is old at this point. But for them to try to take a pandemic and seemingly hope that it comes here and kills millions of people so that they could end Donald Trump's streak of winning is a new level of sickness.
And last night, in the middle of all of this, the Secretary of Health and Human Services showed that even among adults, job one in this president's cabinet remains praising the boss at all costs.
Just want to report to everybody that thanks to the president's historically aggressive containment efforts, we have really been able to keep the risk to Americans low right now so that everyday Americans don't need to be worried. But that can change, and that's why it's important for all of us to prepare. That's why the president is leading a whole of government effort. He's put the vice president in charge of our entire government, getting prepared and making sure our state, local communities also are prepared. And so the president really deserves incredible credit.
Meanwhile, Trump has decided to re-up his nomination of Republican Congressman John Ratcliffe of Texas to be Director of National Intelligence. Ratcliffe is one of the more fervent Trump supporters in Congress. His last nomination for this same job was DOA after mistruths were reported concerning his past prosecutions of terrorists.
Part of my background is that I was a terrorism prosecutor for George W. Bush. I'm John Ratcliffe. As U.S. Attorney, I prosecuted terrorists.
Point is, Ratcliffe was a U.S. attorney only on an interim basis and for less than a year.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.